Electrophysiology is one of the two top research priorities of the Libin Cardiovascular Institute. Electrophysiology is a subspecialty of cardiology that deals with patients who have heart rhythm disorders. Atrial fibrillation is the most common sustained heart rhythm disorder that we see in clinical practice, and your lifetime risk of developing atrial fibrillation if you survive to be 40 years of age is 1 in 4.
So there are three main principles of atrial fibrillation treatment. The first is to look for risk factors, or what's causing the atrial fibrillation in each person, and see if we can reverse or manage those better. The second part is trying to identify people who have a higher risk of having a blood clot and therefore a stroke related to their atrial fibrillation, and giving them treatment related to that, typically blood thinners. And the third, and probably the most challenging aspect, is managing the symptoms of atrial fibrillation itself.
In 2004, I went to the doctor complaining many times of anxiety because I thought that my insides were I was going to explode. My heart was that sorry. It was really scary. I went to have the ECG. I laid down and I knew I couldn't hold still because my insides were heaving with this palpitating heart. When she ripped off the paper, she looked at it and said, "A cardiologist will be in touch with you." So a few days later, my doctor phoned me. She said that I'd had a diagnosis of something called atrial fibrillation.
The onus on us is to try to identify mechanisms that we can address, new diagnostic tools that help us identify people at risk for these arrhythmias and intervene before the arrhythmia develops, and also to develop new therapies that are more effective and better tolerated. I and the group that we have assembled here in the Libin Cardiovascular Institute have made enormous contributions in the entire spectrum of heart rhythm disorders and cardiac electrophysiology.
We really want to understand how atrial fibrillation occurs at the cellular and molecular levels. The thing that excites me the most is the possibility of finding out something new about a complex arrhythmia like atrial fibrillation, and in turn having that at some point, hopefully in the very foreseeable future, make a difference to people, save lives, have an impact on the lives of Calgarians and Canadians. The prevalence of atrial fibrillation is increasing. I think the estimates right now are by the year 2050 there will be 30 million people in North America and Europe who have atrial fibrillation. The way to solve that is through research.
Research is really fundamental to everything we do in medicine, and atrial fibrillation is certainly no exception to that. We need basic science research to really understand what's causing a disease and to identify and develop new treatments. We then need the clinical research, which is more what I do, to test those treatments and make sure that they work and are safe to use in people.
I was sent to a cardiac specialist. He put me on a drug called amiodarone, and a few months later I had a chemical conversion where the drug built up in my system and actually corrected my AFib, and my heart went back into rhythm. I went from having this activity inside me to sudden peace. The last time I saw Dr. Wilton, he invited me to participate in a research project to offer an opportunity for people in the future to receive better treatment. And I have the opportunity to give so much to educating doctors.
Labs like mine and other labs that work on these medical problems really depend on the support of people who are willing to back that kind of research. We're incredibly grateful when we get that kind of support, and without a doubt it makes a huge difference to the success of what we do.